It is 5:30. I now call to order this April 1st Friendswood City Council meeting and announce that we have a quorum. Our invocation tonight is going to be led by Pastor David Lorenz of First Baptist Church. So if you all please stand and stay standing while we do the pledges after David says some words.
Will you bow with me, please? Heavenly Father, as we gather this evening, we are grateful that in your sovereignty you've seen that we are able to live in this wonderful community. And so thank you for that blessing of living here in Friendswood. And tonight as we gather and we meet together, I pray for these students who are learning a little bit about volunteerism, about what it means to serve and to give their life away and to help others become better. And so bless them this evening as they do that in their families. And as our council makes decisions, we trust that you will speak into them your wisdom and your grace so that our community will continue to thrive and be a blessing not only to its citizens but those in our greater area. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Awesome job. Very good.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Let's see what I forgot. You all hearing me okay when I was not amplified? I'm supposed to be amplified. I kind of mentioned it. I kind of talked about next item on our agenda is to have these folks take over our city council seats. So I'm going to invite you up one at a time. I'm going to introduce you all, and you're going to come up here. And the reasons we do this are really fourfold. We first off, we do want people to come out and see a little bit about how their government works. We want to give these students a chance to learn a little bit about volunteerism. We also, it's a leadership opportunity for them too. You know, these 10 kids selected from Westwood are representing all the second graders. Andy, how many second graders you got over there? Pop quiz, sorry. Principal's in the back. 211. So we have 10. So we have a little less than 5% of the entire second grade population from Westwood here tonight representing. So they're taking a leadership role tonight and doing this for their school. And then also, you know, we want to build on FISD's character building principles that they teach to their students. So this is part of that. But, you know, as leaders, we could see one of these kids serving on city council sometime in the future. You know, Friendswood, little known fact, we have had an 18-year-old city council member, Todd Stewart. If any of you know Todd Stewart, he served many years ago because he's about 60 probably now. So he's probably in the 1980s. You know, he got elected as an 18-year-old and he served on city council for a couple years. Then he wised up, went to law school and got a real job. But anyway, so without further ado, let me start to introduce these folks. I'll get these council members to get out of the way, and y'all just you go that way or something. First off, our city secretary, Daniel Oliamika. Close? Sorry about that, Daniel. I butchered your name. Letty will come up and get it. Council member position 6 is Molly Beisner. Oh, and let me tell you that Daniel's teacher is Dakota Hubble. Dakota, are you here? All you people can sit now. Sorry. Molly, your teacher is Maddie Owen. Where's Maddie? Oh, hey, Maddie. I want to thank the principal and all the second grade teachers for being here too. It's time out of their busy day to come over here and observe their students in action. Council member position 5, Mason James. Jennifer Collins, teacher.
Want any candy?
Thank you,
Take
Ms.
everything you
Collins.
want right there. Because if you don't eat it, I'm gonna eat it.
Council member position 4, Robin Tucker.
Good job.
Teacher Darian, register. Darian here? Not here. Is your grandfather here? Is he here somewhere?
Yes.
Point him out. Can you see him? It's right over there. I see him. I see Mr. Tucker over there. Mayor Renee Buchanan. Renee's teacher is Lexi Compton. Lady, you might have to start printing this a little bigger for me. This is a little small here. Oh, yeah. If I'd have known, I could have worn my pink blazer. Yeah, I didn't know.
Make sure you talk.
Council member position 3 is Charlotte Gresham, and Melissa Comer is her teacher. Hey, Melissa. Yeah,
That one's Charlotte Boone.
that one's what?
That's Charlotte
Oh, it says Charlotte Boone. Sorry, it says Charlotte. What did you think you were going to be? They might have just put the Charlottes. They might have mixed. Are you actually the city attorney? No. The other Charlotte is the city attorney.
Well, the real Charlotte, please stand.
So, this is you right there. Who are you? That's what I said. Oh, they had the name plates. Okay. Okay, Charlotte Gresham.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
So I think we're straight.
And when you talk.
Council member position 2 is Savannah Dozier. And Savannah's teacher is Haley Pimenter. It's not that the word's too small. It's that there's not enough contrast up here with these lights. I have a hard time seeing. Council member position 1 is Adelina Correa. Say Adelina or Adelina? Adelina, okay. Got one right. And Adelina, your teacher is Leah Strahan. Hey, Leah. City Attorney, Charlotte Boone. And I already know the teacher because I met the teacher the other day, Miss Kutz. Is she here? Yeah, good to see you again. I went into her science class the other day. That was pretty cool. City Manager, Lucas Honeycutt. And Victoria Motter is the teacher. Not here? This is our public information officer, by the way, Glenda, taking all the pictures and doing great work. All right, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Consider a proclamation declaring April 1st, 2024 as Westwood Elementary Day in the city of Friendswood, Texas. Would the city manager please give the council an overview of the item? Mayor and council, tonight you will have before you a proposed proclamation declaring April 1st, 2024 Westwood Elementary Day in Friendswood, Texas. As you know, Westwood Elementary is part of the Friendswood Independent School District and is an exemplary campus and a source of pride for our community. Has our city attorney approved the wording of the proposed proclamation?
Yes, Mayor, I have drafted the wording of the proposed proclamation, and it is in the line with the vision statement of the city of Friendswood.
Will the city secretary please read the city's vision statement for the record?
The city of Friendswood has the following statement as its vision. Together we build our future in a friendly place to live, work, play, learn, and worship.
Thank you. I will now read the proposed proclamation. This proposed proclamation in the city of Friendswood, Texas declares April 1st, 2024 as Westwood Elementary Day in the city of Friendswood, Texas. It is now time to take a vote. Do I have a motion accepting the proposed proclamation? I move that we accept the proposed proclamation as presented.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second accepting the proposed proclamation. Is there any discussion? At Westwood Elementary, we pledge to be kids with character, and we pledge to be bucket fillers.
At Westwood Elementary, we will be honest, reliable, and worthy of trust.
We will be responsible, fair, doing what we must. At Westwood Elementary, with our words and actions, we show that we care. We will be good citizens and do our share. At Westwood Elementary, we will respect ourselves and others too. We will accept the best in all we do. Would the city secretary please read the motion on the table?
We have a motion by Councilmember Position 1 and a second from Councilmember Position 2 to accept a proposed proclamation of the City of Friendswood, Texas, declaring April 1st, 2024 as Westwood Elementary Day in the City of Friendswood, Texas.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, Westwood Elementary School. Will there being no other business, I adjourn this council for a day meeting.
Parents and grandparents, if you want to come up and take a quick picture of your student in their position before, then we're going to all go outside in the foyer and take a group picture in front of our logo out there. All right, item 5, council comments and reports. Mayor Pro Tem Rocky.
Well, I just want to say this is my penultimate meeting. I have one more real meeting and then a meeting where I get to vote myself out. And I will say that the one thing I will miss is those sessions with the kids. If anybody doesn't know, it was Mike's idea. He claims to have stolen it from some other city, but I think he thought it up on his own. And Letty has really done a lot of work to make those things just very organized and very impressive. So I just wanted to thank you all for that piece, because I will miss those kids.
Is it my turn?
Could be. I could skip over you if you want me to
No,
come
it's
back.
okay.
Councilmember Branson.
Thank you, sir. I had a really fun experience with kiddos this month, as well as a little Girl Scout troop that I think you spoke to when they were Daisy's mayor. But we went over, they wanted to learn a little bit about democracy. And in talking to them, I asked them some questions, and it was kind of cool to hear some of the things that they like about Friendswood. And I think it's what the parents might be saying as well. They were excited about school, believe it or not, parks, trees, and that we have a safe community. Some of the things that they would like to see improved, so I did go there, was air. They called it air pollution. And then they also called it lighting pollution. But the number one thing that they want is a hot dog stand. But it was a lot of fun. So I got to speak with the little Girl Scout troop. So I'll stop there.
Councilmember
nothing
Hanks.
to report
Nothing
this
tonight. Councilmember Griffon.
All right, Mayor, I got a couple of things I want to announce. The Anson Jones Masonic Lodge will be doing their continuing initiative and honoring local educators and supporting our outstanding students on Tuesday, tomorrow evening, April the 2nd. The prestigious Maribel B. Lamar Award will be presented to Friendswood High School Theater Director Kathy Podrell. while 4 high school seniors will each receive college scholarships. If you don't know, Maribel B. Lamar, the second president of the Republic of Texas, has been called the father of the Texas public education system for his leadership in establishing quality public education in Texas. Lamar was also a member of the Masonic fraternity, known then as it is today for its strong support for our public schools. The Maribel B. Lamar Award is presented to educators who embody a similar spirit towards public education. As a longtime educator in Friendswood Schools, Pod, as she's most affectionately known, is a dedicated community leader and educator. With Pod's leadership and commitment to providing a quality and valuable public school experience, countless young Friendswood men and women have benefited from her direction through the Friendswood High School Theater program. Pods inspires young people to build confidence and tenacity while positively shaping their character. These impactful contributions personify the spirit of this prestigious award. We're giving away 4 scholarships this year. Recipients are Jacob Mayfield, Ashley Wainscott from Friendswood High School, James Collins from Pearland High School, and Avery Marchino from Bethany High School, Bethany, Oklahoma. And I'd also like to have an opportunity to brag on the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District. I have been liaison. This is my 7th year with the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District, and 2 of those years as chair of the Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee. And they have just done a really great job. They quietly work and do their diligence, and their work is really second to none in all the municipalities and other counties. But of my 7 years that I have been liaison, I have never seen us work better and have more openness with other municipalities. League City, Harris County Flood Control District, Harris County, the Commissioner's Court in Galveston. Galveston County's Commissioner's Court's always helped us, and even the state of Texas stepped up and recently gave us $10 million. But someone recently asked me, they said, well, what is the tax rate over at the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District? And I had to pull it back and look a little bit, but it's 11.88 cents. It's down a penny from the year before's budget. And they asked me, well, what do they do with this money? And I did have the opportunity to pull some notes from my liaison reports, and if I could, I'd kind of like to go over, because this is over here by Kroger, and this is the kind of work that they do. I know if y'all drive up 2351 and you look on the other side of Kroger and then back behind Kroger, there's work that y'all probably haven't seen. They've put in some railroad trestles, and the reason I'm talking about this is Joseph is going to give his report, and I'm not going to step on his report. But I did want to come over and go over some of the numbers that they're looking at. The slope repairs from 2351 downstream, 1.5 million. The Baptist church improvements, 500,000. Slope repair upstream of FM 2351 to Dunbar, 525,000. Total cost there is $2.5 million. Cowards Creek, they have slope repairs upstream of Baker Road. All these things are hugely important. Slope repairs downstream of Baker Road, that's 700,000. Slope repairs at Nye property, 300,000. Slope repairs upstream at FM 518, 350,000. Slope repairs downstream of Castlewood, 400,000. Russo property inline detention, $2 million. Shadwell property inline detention, $1.25 million. These are all projects that they're inline, or some of them they're already working on right now. On Chigger Creek, that was $5 million right there. Chigger Creek, they have slope repairs downstream of St. Cloud Windstone, 425,000. Slope repairs downstream of Windstone to Greenbrier, 525,000. I could go on. That's another $2.5 million. On the Clear Creek alone, the Forest of Friendswood Detention Pond, they're looking at a $10 million project. Clearing and desnagging, $1 million, and they're just finishing up the barge work on the creek. And if you haven't seen the work that they've done with the barge, they've gone up and down the Clear Creek watershed, and they have desnagged, and they've pulled debris out. Everything that you could imagine has been piled on that. And maybe Joseph can speak to the tonnage of debris that has come out of there. And like I said, I don't want to step on his report, but the Clear Creek slope improvements from FM 2351 second detention pond, another $10 million. Second detention pond to the golf course, we're looking at $25 million. These are going to be all partnered, usually with the city of Friendswood and also Harris County Flood Control District. For the first time in the history of the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District, the Harris County Flood Control District allowed them to go and work on an oxbow on the other side of the creek. That has never happened in the history of this. And then there's total cost of some $135 million work that they're planning on doing. And this is something that takes years and years and years to accomplish, but this is something that y'all have given them the task to do. And they do it very diligently. And I just am honored and privileged that I've been a part. And what a learning experience it has been for me to be liaison and watching the work that they do. It's a wonderful learning experience, just like being on city council is a wonderful learning experience. And then lastly, I just want to say, Joseph, on behalf of the council and the mayor Mike and the city staff, we just want to send you our deepest and sincerest wishes of condolences on the passing of your father, Joseph Anderson, 92. We just want to commend your family and everyone to the care and protection of our Heavenly Father, and just wish you the sincerest, and that God will sustain you at these rough times right now. So just a wonderful, wonderful operations manager over there. That's all I got.
Great words. Councilmember Griffon, if I ever had a thought of removing you from that liaison role, it's out of my head, because nobody knows more about our drainage stuff than you do.
Well, it's been a real learning experience for me, and I've really enjoyed it.
Good. Councilmember Matranga?
Nothing this evening.
Birthday boy, Councilmember Aaronworth. Happy birthday.
Appreciate it. First, I want to say, Mayor Mike, I really enjoyed your speech at La Brisa, talking about your journey from the Navy to the astronaut. If anybody hadn't heard that story, it's a good story that had a lot of ups and downs in it, that had a good ending, and it was just an honor to hear that. And
It's called
I hope
My
other
Story
people
of Failure and Disappointment.
it was good. It had a lot of
I get
humor
requests
in
for
it,
it.
and
Yeah, well, thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
I had a good time.
I hope everyone enjoyed their Easter. I thought it was nice this year that we saw a lot of places closed, and I think that's kind of been a good thing since COVID, that Easter's kind of become a holiday that it's a reminder of the importance of family, and that creates some enduring memories in a fast-paced, moving world. And I think that's what a lot of this city was built on, and it was just nice and refreshing that we've been able to see that again. I wanted to use some of my comments tonight to express some appreciation for some of the staff we have here. After the last meeting, it seemed like I thought we were building progress with FISD about the discussion of the SROs, and they were even kind enough to come back, change their board minutes based on some of mine and other remarks. And less than 4 days after that, it was disappointing that we saw a local newspaper ad, as well as some social media outlets, wrongly accusing our city staff and our permitting department about delaying the opening of their new auditorium. And I think some of this is just disheartening to our staff. So while I hope that permitting process was going to be on our agenda tonight, it's not, and that's okay, because I intend to offer my thanks and praise for their hard work and their dedication. And I wanted to use my council comments tonight to take a moment to commend Brian Mansfield, his team, and all of our staff for their efforts to uphold the security codes at the highest standards within our city in what they do. And I think that sets us apart in what we do, because we do not discriminate in anything, even in our own city buildings. It's not an easy job, especially when they constantly face unwarranted criticism at times like this one, and are even scapegoated by the district. There's no reason for them or our staff to constantly ever be thrown under the bus over and over in these scenarios, especially over the last few years. I'm hopeful we can see a change and better communication between the two entities going forward. And I just want to thank the staff again. You all are the heartbeat that keeps the city turning. We're forever grateful to you, and I'm sorry for what y'all have had to go through. And hopefully we're going to continue to get some dialogue and see some better things out of that. And I appreciate everything.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'll just close with council comments. I love the fact that you've heard me talk enough. Some of you weren't in the room when we had the second graders, and rightly so. It's kind of it's a lot of activity in here when those second graders take over, and you're nice to allow the parents to have the seats while they're doing all that. But this is, just to let you know, this is our fifth year doing it. We've done it since 2018, but we took a year off. So we've had, thinking about, let me see if I can do math in my head, about 18 times I think we've had second graders take over city council since 2018, and it's always a very popular council meeting for us. It's a lot of fun to watch these students in action, and some of you weren't in here to see it, but some of these second graders, they have a script, and of course if I could give a script to all these people it'd be great, but tell you they wouldn't read it. But a lot of the students have a script, but they have their lines memorized. They've been rehearsing it for so long, and so it goes off very well, and it's really kind of a neat thing to see them come in here and do that. Steve, I appreciate you giving me the credit for that idea, but I did. I stole the idea from another mayor that I know, but in a different city that only has one elementary school, so they have one second grade takeover. We have 4 now, but it's well worth doing. I think we'll keep doing it, and mayors after me hopefully will continue it as well. Item 6, public comment. In order to comply with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate any item not listed on the agenda. As such, the City Council will listen to public comment and may 1, refer the item to City Management for further action, or 2, direct staff for the placement of said item on a future agenda. During public comment, the public shall comply with rules of decorum. I have a few cards here. Don Johnson.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure I turned this in correctly, and I appreciate the opportunity to present the annual groundwater report from the Harris Galveston Subsidence District to you. And if you have a little spreadsheet in front of you, that is the report that shows what all the municipalities in Galveston County are doing, how much water that they've pumped, how much they were allocated, what their permit fees were, and it's got a special little column on here that says rebates. And I'm really very proud of that little column there, because if not for the Galveston County city representatives, that little column wouldn't be there. We started that up years ago, and we had to get it going with the cities. And now the cities get back somewhere from $30,000 to $50,000 annually, because we've pushed that, and we've made sure that all the cities know how that works. Another page that I've put on here right behind that is the conservation grants. That's another program that the representatives for the Galveston County cities, and I need to mention before I forget it, Shannon Lucas is the other representative, and she's very active on the Subsidence District Board with me, and we're probably 2 of the most active people out there pushing things. But back to the Subsidence District Grant Program, I printed a copy of the latest report from that, and because we've been active and we've let the cities know when there are grant programs and how to apply and what it's all about, over $400,000 has been given to Galveston County cities. I think Friendswood received nearly $50,000 in one of the grant programs. So, you know, we're very proud of the work that we've done for the cities, for the Subsidence District. I was a little concerned when I heard the chairman of the Drainage District was going around talking to some of the city officials, and he even came down to one of our meetings and said, hey, I can tell you how to save a bunch of money. Just get rid of those ne'er-do-well city representatives you all have, and you all will save money. Unfortunately, I don't think he knew how much money we were actually bringing in and contributing to the cities, because we're, you know, fiscal conservatives. We don't just go down there and, you know, want to spend money and waste money. When there's an opportunity to do some good or bring some money back, we do that. So I really appreciate it, and I know Shannon really appreciates being your representatives. And if we can ever do anything or you have any questions, feel free to call us and talk to us. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. David L. Johnson.
First of all, I want to thank the mayor, city council. That was great having the second graders in here. My name is David Johnson. I moved in here in 1994. Becky Ballard was our realtor in Houston, Texas. Her brother, y'all might know this guy. He's a longtime resident. Her brother is in the real estate business. That's how we got here. And I told him way back then, I said, Friendswood's the best kept secret around. And I still believe that. I did enjoy the second graders. I'm thinking maybe we ought to get them back in here because they were really the adults in the room. But I appreciate what you guys do for us every day. And I'm not a politician. I don't really like politicians. I'm just a retired corporate pilot. I did, however, have another career early on. I grew up in an engineering family that did a lot of civil engineering in Harris, Galveston, and other counties in Texas. I did spend 4 years with Brown & Root. If you don't know who that is, that's a little civil engineering company, and I was in the civil engineering division. And I'm not an engineer, but I grew up, I know a lot about it. And one of my jobs was to lobby at the state of Texas with a guy named Frank Thompson, who was handpicked by George Brown, to get the projects done that we need to have done. At any rate, I'm running against Kevin Holland for position 1, and I just think we need a fresh look. I also believe that this appointee culture is not accountable to the public. Win or lose, I think myself, Kim Gerard, and Jason Jones had succeeded in getting the present appointees to run for office. And so I believe one way or the other we'll have them accountable to the voters.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate it.
Kim Gerard.
Thank you for having me. I'm Kim Gerard. I am currently running for position 5 on the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District. I chose to run. I'm not a politician either. I'm a mom. I'm a business owner, and I have done a lot of volunteer work. Miss Hanks, you know a lot of the volunteer work that I've done through FISD while my children were here. I've raised 3 kids in 23 years here in Friendswood. My late husband and I own businesses, and that's what I run today since his passing back in 2020. I chose to run because we flooded in 2017 during Harvey. And I have watched as I've gone to these drainage district meetings and watched where nothing's been done on our end of the creek. I am facing flooding again, and I am not very happy when I see that there's a bunch of stuff happening north of us, but nothing happened on South Friendswood. I also realized with the appointment culture that we aren't being represented. It's not a representative taxing entity. We are not being represented as the city of Friendswood. So I have chosen to run because I feel like these appointees need to be held accountable and start using the money wisely. So we're being taxed without representation, and that's my main focus. The second one is that flooding it's gonna happen again in Friendswood if we don't take care of the south side of Friendswood to get that water out. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Jones.
The one thing I've learned is you've got to wait until you're almost to the mic before you start speaking. So in all the meetings I've attended, that's the one thing I knew to focus on. My voice isn't quite what it normally is, so if you'll bear with me, I'd appreciate it. So this past Tuesday, myself, Kim Gerard, David Johnson, and Director Burkett had a chance to meet with Friendswood Fire and EMS. They had us come in. We introduced ourselves as regular residents, the same as them, and as candidates. They let us stay throughout their meeting, their voting process, see how they ran their thing and their new elected officers. Obviously, knowing some of those people, they're great people. They sacrifice a lot. It's something you assume, but when you know them, you really get to see it up close and what their families sacrifice for them to be there. So we really appreciated that. You know, as we all know, we're here to talk about the election. One thing that's very important to me and everyone I've spoken to is debates. As of now, there are no debates scheduled between the challengers and the current sitting board members. I went to the Chamber of Commerce and they said they're out of the debate business. They didn't like the negative attention that it brought. They said they would still host it, not host it, sorry. They will no longer host, but we could use their room. Currently, the Galveston County Tri-County Women's Group has offered to host. No matter who does, it's all we care about. A chance to present our platform to the people, a chance for the other candidates to present theirs, and have an open discussion so that everyone can learn the most about each individual candidate. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. All right, item 7, proclamation. Present a proclamation designating the month of April as Fair Housing Month in the city of Friendswood. We don't usually do proclamations at our city council meetings, but this is a special case. So if you bear with me, let me read this. I, Mike Foreman, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Friendswood, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Fair Housing Month. Whereas the passage of the U.S. Fair Housing Laws, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, established the right to equal housing opportunities for all citizens. And whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the United States should be made available to all citizens without regard to race, color, religion, sex, family status, handicapping conditions, or national origin. And whereas citizens in our community should continue to work together to uphold the fair housing law and the principle of equal opportunity on which it is based. And whereas barriers which diminish the rights and limit the options of any citizen will ultimately diminish the rights and limit the options for all. Now therefore, I, Mike Foreman, the mayor of the city of Friendswood, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Fair Housing Month in the city of Friendswood, and urge all citizens to support the principles of fair housing opportunities for all. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the city of Friendswood this first day of April 2024. Item 8, committees or special reports. 8A, receive the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District's annual report presented by Joseph Anderson, Operations Manager.
I'm just going to take a moment and thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for your service. Councilmember Griffon, you covered a lot of the basis. The commitment we have is to reduce flooding and improve drainage. And I'd like to introduce the board, Lonnie, Teresa, Rusty, and Mr. Gibson. And I'll turn it over to Joseph, and Teresa's going to run the whole projector thing. Thank you, Joseph. This is our general manager, Sharp Guy.
Thanks, Kevin.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, the overview is going to be about the district, completed projects, current and upcoming projects, and stay informed. Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District was formed when the Clear Creek Drainage District and Galveston County Drainage District number 3 merged following the February 2nd, 2002 election. And Joseph Anderson joined GCC-DD September the 1st, 2008, and since that time has introduced numerous projects and initiatives that have improved drainage and reduced flooding for our district. 3 years after arriving, Joseph progressed on our district on Clear Creek with projects that were not ever previously considered. And I'll go back a little bit and talk now. I came here in September 1st, 2008, and Mr. Harris and Mr. Whitaker took me all around the district. And after about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I said, okay, it's yours. If you need anything, you got our number, call us. Well, I didn't know 12 days later Ike was going to hit us. And so I had to learn the district very, very quick, and you could see where things needed to be improved and stuff, but we made that, and we got stronger from Hurricane Ike. And back in 2008, when that happened, city staff took me under their wing, and we got through it as a team. And ever since that day, Murad and I, we kind of made a pact that we were going to continue working together and always have a strong relationship, because you know, if both of us are on the same page and working together, we're going to get a lot done. And that's what we've done. You can go to the next, please. Our mission is to reduce the probability of flooding throughout the Friendswood, League City area by improving drainage while preserving the natural beauty of the creeks, resulting in increased safety, higher quality of life, and environment fostering economic growth. This is a district boundary map, and a lot of folks might not even realize that we've got all of Friendswood, and then we also got a portion of League City, which is on Dickinson Bayou. Our district goals is to maintain zero net increase in runoff due to development, construct and maintain facilities that will contain a 100-year storm runoff in the Clear Creek and Dickinson Bayou watershed. The following streams are what we maintain and take care of is Clear Creek, Sugar Creek, Guards Creek, Marys Creek, Coyotes Creek, Box Ditch, Dickinson Bayou, Vollmer Ditch, Madera Ditch, Dickinson Bypass, Whitehall and Aaliyah Ditch, Eagle Creek, Mustang Ditch, Ure Ditch, and Lundy Ditch. And back in 08, when I arrived here, the maintenance guys, the mowing crews and stuff were maintaining 60 to 65 miles at that time, being able to mow them and stuff. And as of today, we're over 200 miles. So just to let y'all know, that's how much improvement that we've done on all the streams. Some of the maintenance that we do is mowing and spraying, vegetation control. We'll do that once or twice a year. Clearing obstructions and desnagging, desilting, erosion prevention, and erosion repair. No, I'm done. And completed projects. Yep. Sorry about that.
I got a question, Joseph, while you're waiting on that. Hey, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Oh.
I got a question. While they're fixing that, tell us about the round trip you make to your dedication to this job. I've heard you got a long commute and how much you did.
I do. When originally I was from Needville, and I worked at Fort Bend County as a superintendent at the drainage district there. And then this opportunity came, and I put in for it, and I got it. So at that time, I was driving about an hour either way. And now today, it takes me an hour and a half each way. And we had to relocate back closer to home for our parents and stuff, and that's why we did it. So I actually got a travel trailer that I stay in Alvin at an RV park sometime of the week just to break it up.
I've heard that before, and it just shows your dedication to this city and how good of a job you do. And I wanted people to hear that because you pour out a lot of heart and soul into this, and we really appreciate everything you do.
Well, thank you.
I know you got a lot of projects going on, Joseph, because I see the dump trucks going up and down the street every day.
Yeah, we got Quakers, we got Castlewood, Marys Creek.
So, Joseph, do you remember the number of dump trucks that came out of the Imperial Estates?
158,000. And that created about 920 acre feet of storage. Since 2008, between the city and the district, we've created 1,625 acre feet of stormwater storage on the Clear Creek. 620 acre feet on Dickinson Bayou. And you know, I guess I'm gonna go off script now. But you know, it's not about just one project or one huge project. It's about multiple projects that are put together, and that's where it's gonna make a difference. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And you know, between the city and the drainage district, in almost 16 years now, we've done $35+ million in projects self-funded. And that says a lot for a district this small.
And along those lines, Joseph, about how much do y'all bring in annually? Because I know you had to save for quite a while to be able to launch into $35 million projects, because you don't bring in more than what, $2 million per year?
No, right now we're bringing in like 6.4.
Okay.
On our tax revenue. But when I first got here, it was a little over 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
But back then the board, they were going to acquire some property and stuff. And anyway, they were smart about saving the money and putting it away. And just like when Imperial Estates came up, you know, that was opportunity and we were able to fund it. And so are we good on here now?
So for whatever reason, it's not communicating to the PowerPoint, and there's no way I can screencast. My apologies on that.
That's fine. But like upcoming projects is, you know, the FM 1959, which they finally started. Deepwood project, that'll be a city and district project. Frenchman's Creek, the same thing in Quaker's Land, and we're working on that right now, currently.
There's a lot of partners on Dixie Farm on that project, right?
Yes.
Everybody, it seems like, involved.
Yes.
Well, and Joseph, of that 6 million or 6.4 million, 2 million of it is operating management. Y'all maintain, y'all mow, y'all have
That's
to go.
correct.
So you really got about $4 million that you're working with annually.
That's correct, yes, sir. But just like the mowing and stuff, you know, it's kicking off now. We're a small group. And a few years ago, well, 12 years ago, I came up with a maintenance service contract that we were able to hire a contractor, and that was Lindsay back then. Now it's DC Contracting, and they've been with me for over 12 years now. And you know, the board renews it each year and stuff, but we know their work and they know what we expect, and you know, and they've come in under budget all the time. One other thing I did a couple of years ago now is, because we're a small group, and I hired a contractor to come in and help with the general maintenance. And, you know, and that's been a big savings for the district and taxpayers. Because when it rains, they go home, they don't get paid, so. Okay, like Frenchman's Creek. That, you know, when the buildings were there and stuff, and then as they were taking them down, that's going to be hopefully a good flood control project between the city and the district.
Now that's in Polly Ranch, correct?
Yes. And that's a after photo after they got the buildings cleaned up and stuff. Deepwood, district went in and bought the one house, and the city bought some of them, and some of it was already buyout property. And we've did a lot of clearing over there already and getting it ready for that'll be an inline detention basin. Mary's Creek, this was over by the Baptist church. Kind of see the befores and how we progressed. The banks were just straight up and down, so we had to do a lot of rebuilding on the banks. Then you can see as it progressed on the after pictures.
It almost looks like a park over there now, Joseph. It really is nice.
Yeah. And there's some more on Mary's Creek, and then like the Mary's Creek erosion control. This low water crossing was in place way before I was here. So it finally blew out, so we had to have a way to get across to be able to maintain the other side of the creek, Mary's Creek. So we went to the Corps. The Corps said that we couldn't put that low water crossing back in. We had to come up with a different idea. So we came up with the rail car. And
Which I thought was a great idea. I love the rail cars.
and they turned out well, you know. And I was pondering, you know, well, do we build a wooden bridge, you know? And but anyway, to just rebuild this bank here, it's a task in itself. You know, you've got to dig all the unsuitable soil out. You got to get down to the hard clay, and then come back and import good clay and compact it in. And so we did all of that, and then the two pictures underneath are the railroad crossing cars. So those are two cars that are 82 feet long, and they're two cars that are attached, so we can get our equipment across and all that. And then we call it Devil's Dip, but it's Mary's Creek. This was a nightmare for my guys when there would be a rain, because for some reason on Mary's Creek there's a lot of aquatic vegetation that floats down the creek from up north. And what happened, it would get all hung up on this bridge. And they would have to go out there with long rakes and try to break it loose to get it, you know, to free up to relieve it. And so we went in and did another rail car there for pedestrian and bicycle. And that turned out really nice. If y'all went out there or whatever, it turned out real nice, and it gets used a lot. Desilting, you know, this was on North Eagle Ditch, and you know, like I say, a ditch, roadside ditch, it's most effective the first day that it's cut, and from then on, it's going to start silting in. So every so often, you got to go in and do a desilting to give it back its original capacity, and we do that quite a bit. Because over here, the type of soil we have and stuff, it's a sandy loam in a lot of it, and so once we get a lot of rains and or a bank fails, well, it starts silting in. You can. Do you want to do the drones and stuff? If you don't mind, the video and the drone were. And on the barge, approximately 30,000 cubic yards that was removed.
Wow.
I have a question, Joseph. Are you guys going to be involved in the terracing of the Whitcomb property at the south end of the city?
That's out of our district, and I don't know if we're allowed to. I mean, we could probably get into an interlocal agreement or whatever, but that's going to be a very nice project. It's going to be very beneficial. Here's a drone video of some of this is on Mary's Creek, and we had a place on Mary's Creek that failed, and it was straight up and down and encroaching on some fences. We had to go in and restore that whole bank, and we did slope paving on it. You see, we're getting there. And this is the area that's on the left-hand side. As you can tell, that it's just sheared off straight up and down. And again, what we had to do, we had to get a core permit for this, and had to push the water back out and establish our toe, and then again dig down to good solid clay and rebuild it, and then we poured slope paving on it. You can go to another one. This is the barge working. And I had the barge come in after Ike, and that's the last time that this was done. So it was a lot of debris and stuff that got picked up.
And you did a lot of work on the Harris County side too, with the barge, didn't you? Is that not for public dissemination?
I didn't hear nothing.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is current.
Yeah, and then you don't have to go to all of them, mow there.
But y'all will recall from the freeze and nickel studies that was done for the lower Clear Creek Watershed Steering Committee, they said the most efficient way to convey water is desnagging and cutting this debris away.
And then on our website, you can go to our website, and we have a GCC DD project dashboard that you can click on each site, and it'll tell you the detention basin, the number of acre feet it is, and that's a good tool for folks to go in and look and see what's going on.
On the desnagging, you start at the south end and work north. Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, we have certain staging areas because we've got to watch because if you know we get any rain, the bar is going to float up and it'll get on land. So we got 2 spuds that we've got to put down, and spuds they're just long pipe with a point on them, and we drive them down against the bank and tie up to it where the barge cannot float over the bank, because if the water goes down and gets stuck, we're in trouble. So, but they're finally finished. They're wrapping, getting all their stuff picked up, and they're moving out. So until next time. That's pretty much all I have, unless y'all have any questions.
I have a comment. So I'm very impressed with all the work that y'all have done, and thank you. And Councilmember Griffon, the numbers that you read off tonight, they're staggering when you think that it's just been 6 years basically for most of that work. And like you said, Joseph, it takes time. It's not something you just write a check and you go out next week and it's done. And it represents a lot of work with multiple jurisdictions, different counties, different agencies, and so it's a tremendous amount of work, and that's a lot of money. I remember back in the 80s being at Westwood Elementary, and if we had a heavy rain for a day or most of a day, and it lasted till the end of the school day, we could not send kids home who lived in Sun Meadow, and so the buses couldn't get into that subdivision. I remember waiting to get home even on Castlewood. So there's just been so much work that's been done, and especially in the last 6 years, and I appreciate it.
Well, you know, on Sun Meadows too, we have the 33-acre detention basin. And I think through Harvey, there was very few homes that had water in it. And another project that we did was, and we did it because it was so unsafe to maintain it, was the Whitehall Analia ditch. And, you know, and it was just straight up and down like this, and you couldn't maintain it. So what we did, we came in and put double rows of 6x6 box culverts in, and which everybody was freaking out because when you put them box culverts in, they said, well, the ditch was bigger than that, but it wasn't. But because of the district doing that, then in the Whitehall and Analia, again, there was very few homes that took on water during Harvey. And it's those are the improvements that we all do together.
Thank you.
Great work, Joseph. We appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 8B, receive and discuss the Keep Friendswood Beautiful annual report presented by Patty Steinke, KFB chairperson. Now, is your presentation going to be interactive and
I will not mess with it.
highly?
So it will-
Is it going to bring our system to its knees again? Or?
I have no
I
idea.
appreciate all the people. You got Kay Corey, Paula Matranga. Meg, what are you doing there? You got Parks and Rec just supporting. You got Michael and Brandy Hernandez. You got Vanette. Anybody else here? With, no red shirt. They always show up. They do. Yes, and they all wear their red shirts. So I appreciate it.
I just push it. There it is. Perfect. Okay, hi, I'm Patty Steinke. I serve as the chair of Keep Friendswood Beautiful, and you've already introduced all of my friends that are here tonight. We're a volunteer board whose mission is to enhance the aesthetic appearance of our city and encourage residents to take an active role. And I'd like to review with Mayor and Council some of our activities and accomplishments for the last year. So from April of last year until March of this year. So in last April, we had a successful Spring Sparkle event with lots of participants. You can see some of our data up on the screen. We are going to have our next Spring Sparkle coming up April 13th. It's a twice a year event, Spring Sparkle in the spring and then of course fall holiday. It's at Centennial Park, and it's 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Also during April, we had participation in the FISD Day of Service. We had the Wranglerettes come out, and they're there in the pink shirts. They helped us put in a new bed in Stevenson Park called Butterfly Landing, which is near the small Rotary Pavilion. And they also cleaned up the trash in the area around Cowards Creek near Stevenson Park. And then at the end of April, we honored a former KFB member and longtime Friendswood resident, Loretta Murphy, who passed away in 22 with a beautiful tree in Stevenson Park. And you can see some pictures of her as a participant here on our committee with KFB. We have our annual photo contest each year, and last year we received over 175 entries. These are some examples of some of the photos that were received, and you can see that our theme last year was wildlife. Then you can see our 4 winners. The names and what they had were listed there, and you can see the pictures. And we award our winners with gifts from local sponsorships, businesses, including a $500 gift card from Hometown Bank for our first place winner, which went to the individual that took a picture of a squirrel next to our ferry trail. We thought that was perfect. But anyway, we're starting our photo contest coming up very soon. It's April 15th through May 10th this year, and our theme this year is going to be the landscapes of Friendswood. So we'll see some landscapes. In June, we hosted 50 pre-K students at Stevenson Park from Fort Bend ISD. So they were 3- and 4-year-old kids. They searched for fairies and trolls on our fairy trail, and then they also learned about seeds and pollinators. Later in June, we attended the Keep Texas Beautiful conference here in Houston, where our committee was recognized for our Gold Star affiliate status. Kay Corey was honored as Volunteer of the Year, and Kimberly Ramirez's work was recognized by Keep Texas Beautiful for all that she did at the state level. In July, we won first place, 2nd year in a row, for our float, and you can see our beautiful float there. We also sponsored Movie in the Park, which was Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So the kids and Michael had a great time there. In August, we worked with Parks and Rec staff to host 60 elementary age kids at Centennial Park. They learned about fishing and a little bit about the natural environment. We also welcomed Moses the snake to Stevenson Park. He grew longer and longer as our local children added painted rocks, and he currently lives at Butterfly Landing in Stevenson Park. And we also attended the Chara Back to School open house. Figgy was there and helped us interact with over 60 families. In September, we helped out at the Labor Day Ice Cream Social at the Perry House. We also spruced up the entrance to the ferry trail, and we hosted the Houston Audubon Raptors to the library, where 50 residents learned about these fascinating birds. In October, we began our new collaboration with the FISD Transition Center volunteers, which you can see in that picture. They currently are assisting us most every week in material preparation and even garden work. In November, we had fall holiday, and you can see our statistics there. Even with the threat of rain that day, we had a great turnout. In addition, in November, one of our members, Sean Potter, was featured on the Heritage Gardeners Christmas Home Tour, and we helped host her home and shared information about KFB. I didn't do that. As promised. Yep, we're back. Went too far. There it is. Speaking of Christmas, in December, over 10,000 people visited Stevenson Park for the lighted Christmas trail and Santa in the Park. In addition, our ferry trail was added to with a Christmas ferry trail with special maps for that trail. And the Santa Letter program was also very popular this year. So far in 2024, we've been very busy. In January, we gave away 100 native trees at our Friendswood Arbor Day. In February, we presented matching funds to the Historical Society to help refurbish their production beds. We planted native trees at Lake Friendswood Park thanks to our master naturalist friends and Trees for Houston who donated the trees. During the last 12 months, we have presented 4 Business Beautification Awards: Jeter Funeral Home, 161 Buildings A and B, the Friendswood City Hall, and most recently, Friendswood Garden Emporium. In March, we also added our 17th ferry to the ferry trail in Stevenson Park. Her name is Kimmy, the event planning ferry, which honors Kimberly Ramirez and her 22 years of service to our city. KFB also dedicated a tree in her honor in Stevenson Park. Our many thanks to Mayor and Council for your continued support. We especially appreciate the hard work, creativity, and diligence of the Parks and Rec staff, James, Meg, Catherine, Michael, Garrett, and all the operations staff are wonderful to work with. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. You guys are.
Thank you.
You guys are a pretty easy committee to support because you do great things here in Friendswood, and we're sure glad you're here.
And you always have the prettiest slides.
Well, again, do the hard work of the city staff. Yeah, they're great. They're great at collecting our photographs and doing the montage for us. We appreciate them. All right, thank you.
All right, 8C, receive and discuss the 4th of July Steering Committee Annual Report presented by, I don't see Barb Blanchard.
I apologize, Mayor. The report is in the backup material.
We'll just accept that in the backup material. Thank you. Moving on, item D, receive and discuss a recommendation from the Parking Ad Hoc Committee presented by Marcus Rives, P&Z Chairman.
Good evening, Council. I'm not as eloquent a speaker as these last few people, so bear with me and I'll try to get you through this as painlessly as possible. See, there we go. Help if I could read. The ad hoc subcommittee was formed and appointed by City Council in August 2023 to review the parking regulations for Friendswood and consider the trends that are sweeping the state and the country. That committee, we have several members here. Raise your hand. Okay. And Aubrey and Becky supported us through this. Oh, you should raise your hand too, Your Honor. Okay. Back to the trends sweeping the state and country. The local trends that seem to be going really hot and heavy right now are walkable downtowns, which we've been addressing. Did we finish the sidewalks yet, or are they? Oh. What we see is decreasing vehicle usage and reliance upon Uber, fewer licensed drivers, walkable cities. So what we're seeing is a lot less cars in downtown areas, all across the nation, but particularly in Texas. Many cities and communities are removing all minimum parking requirements, allowing for more buildable area and green spaces. Some of those cities are Allen, Texas, Round Rock, I think Georgetown is in there. And then one of the biggest benefits of reducing parking is less concrete, which also equals better drainage. The committee members spent a great deal of time to understand the current parking regulations and researching current issues related to parking challenges. They researched news articles, reviewed parking requirements from other cities, attended sessions at various conferences, participated in virtual meetings, and visited other cities. As you see, we've got, well, I'm ahead of myself, I'm sorry. In Friendswood, small lots in downtown district are proving to be difficult to develop, And in other areas across town, large parking lots that were built in the 70s and 80s are not being fully utilized. There you can see Captain's Corner is a good example of that. Also Chase Bank, Kroger, 24-Hour Fitness, Sherwin-Williams, all examples of the large lots. A couple of examples of the small lots that are difficult to develop would be the Scoop Ice Cream that just came through. And that couldn't have happened without some concessions. And then the old florist, Bayou Florist, that Stefano's owns, we were unable to develop that because of parking requirements.
Those examples that you're showing, though, were originally grocery stores.
Almost all of them.
We know grocery stores have to have a lot of parking, so you know, they're not all obviously grocery stores anymore, but they started off large parking lots because that was the requirement for a grocery store.
Right. And now that most of them aren't,
sure,
you're seeing empty spaces and a lot of concrete.
Well, I'd love for a business to come in and put a new building right in the middle of one of those parking lots, you know, and take up some of that space with a new building.
We would
Do we
love
have
to
any
see
of those
that
people?
too, or even we would love to see that too, or even green space, pocket parks, for instance, or more beneficial tax development for the city by building another building. The first step for the committee to understand the city's current regulations. So that was a deep dive into our parking matrix, design criteria manual, understand what we can and can't do. We looked at the downtown district and the parking that we have versus the parking we think we need. We even referred to the 2017, what was?
Lauren Griffith?
Yeah, Lauren Griffith. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. Lauren Griffith, she did a parking count throughout the city, total parking, and had come to the conclusion that we had more than enough parking for what we need now, plus in the future. The committee also read and reviewed many published articles on parking trends across the nation and in the state. We also reviewed parking regulations for other cities such as Pearland, League City, Georgetown, Bastrop, and a couple of others. The committee members crafted a questionnaire to receive consistent feedback from each city. So we're not scientists, but we did want to have a kind of a little control group of our questions so that we got the same type of answers, apples to apples. The committee members also found that the cities in general are removing barriers for development, whether those be for parking, housing, or other land use related regulations. So making it easier to develop, easier to build in the cities, and once again, less fields of concrete.
Marcus, what has our experience been with getting other property owners that have parking to enter into share agreements with developments that want to go in? I know that we did have some share agreements with the Scoop Ice Cream, but are we seeing a readily amenable situation where people are amenable to having shared parking?
Aubrey can probably answer that better than I can.
We have had a couple that have been successful. I know future developments that are coming have worked out some agreements. Other than that, like the City of Houston shared parking, or their shared parking calculations have worked. We've accepted those on 2 or 3 different projects as of now, especially for mixed use, for businesses that may be occupied heavier during the day, and then, you know, in the evening maybe there's a restaurant, and so their shared parking calculations have been helpful as well.
Aubrey, Marcus also mentioned the old florist at the corner of East Willowick and 518. There must be a lot of limitations there. That's a very small lot.
Yes.
What could possibly be developed there?
And well, the difficulty with that one is that the head-end parking faces South Friendswood Drive, which is a huge safety concern, and we don't allow the head-end parking on 518 any longer. So most likely the best scenario for that would be for that building to be demolished and maybe 2 or 3 lots in that area combined to make it a more developable site.
Gotcha.
The city is open in that lot in particular. We have the old city hall and police station directly behind that area by roughly half a block that we can work with them on a shared facility. The difficulty with that building is it needs to come down regardless of the lack of parking. It's
Right.
woefully outdated.
Anson Jones will have parking there too.
Correct.
And we did even look at tearing it down and putting a new building there, but parking was still very, very restrictive. With just a minimal sized building, we were required to have 4 or 5 spaces that we still couldn't even fit in there with a driveway.
What situation do you run into where you've already developed a lot and it has an office space on the bottom, and then they decide, well, you know what, I've got room upstairs and I can make another office and put another little business in up there? What do they run into with increased capacity? They got to have increased parking, right?
Well,
is that
You want to answer that? You want me to?
Joe would know. He
that-
would probably
there's
know
the-
better than
there-
anybody.
There's the 2 experts right there. You
Now,
go ahead.
I was just wondering because I've heard of that situation where there was a building and they wanted to go up because it's cheaper to go up than it is to go out. And
I would say, I mean, if for an existing building, shopping centers, for instance, like,
Okay.
you know, if they're going to we encourage them to account for some restaurant, parking, if they're going to put a restaurant in there, and then, because everybody just wants to do retail. Well, if you just do 4 spaces per 1,000, and then, the parking for a restaurant is 10 spaces per 1,000.
Yeah.
If you don't account for some of that, then you're going to be short on parking. So obviously do our best to be responsible with the number of parking spaces. We don't want them over parked either. But if those uses, once the strip center's there, if those uses change, we're not going to deny an occupancy based on use or based on parking. The market's going to work that out. That business is going to be successful, or cars are going to find somewhere to park, but we're not going to deny occupancy based on parking.
all right, my last comment is I go see Dr. Sim over here on 528 for my allergies. And that strip center's on 528 where all those doctors' offices are, and less parking there would be horrendous because that is so tight and it's always so packed. There's so many medical offices and everything, and it's hard to find parking over there. In that situation, reduced parking would be a disaster over there. So that I would not be for reduced parking in that situation. My personal opinion.
Well, I was going to wait to the end, but we've kind of jumped into some of the middle of it. But Aubrey, since you're up there, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. The way our design criteria is set up, the way our ordinances are set up, staff currently has the ability to change or decrease. I assume most of the time would be decrease parking requirements by 5%. Is that do I have that right?
Yes,
and
sir.
then the city engineer has some latitude to change the parking requirements as well. For particular reasons. Is that still correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the last is planning and zoning really has unlimited ability to change the parking requirements as well. So if they're on unique situations where parking needed to be reduced, it's hard to fit things on 518, we do have on our current ordinances, we have the ability to change that, to make those businesses may be successful, to be able to squeeze in with lower parking. Is that do I have it about right?
Yes, and additionally, our parking regulations are in our design criteria manual, which is adopted by resolution and not an ordinance. So if it were in the zoning ordinance to get variances, they would have to go to the zoning board of adjustment. But with it being a resolution, P&Z and city engineer have more latitude over those regulations.
Thank you. I didn't want to call you back up again. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know where to pick up from there. I guess let me finish with where I was. We did have virtual meetings with the city of Round Rock, who were one of the groups that took away all their parking requirements. They've helped bolster their parking issues by adding city parking lots, both flat parking lots and parking garages. We also, I attended a session at the American Planning Association, and so did Aubrey and Becky. Almost every session I attended in there were cities that were doing the same thing, eliminating all parking, at least in their downtown districts, and trying to open those spaces up, encouraging people to walk a couple of blocks, which, you know, here we don't even walk halfway through the HEB parking lot. So regardless of what we do, one of the things we would like for city council to think about and promote would be the walkability of our city. Try to think more about how can we encourage that? How can we encourage people to walk just 2 blocks to go somewhere instead of parking and taking up spaces. We also did a discovery trip to the city of Conroe. That was very beneficial. A couple of you guys were there. I thought it was very interesting how they had pretty much done the same thing. I don't think they eliminated all their parking. They didn't really say, but they did reduce it, and then they allowed for other alternates like parking garages and things close by. Let's see. Just a couple of pictures there and some of the other things that we looked into. So our recommendations, you've already jumped ahead on that a little bit. As a committee, we recommend the reduction of parking spaces across the board in the city by 15%. And that would be in addition to the 5% that the development department already has capability of doing. That would equal 20% reduction in parking. We came to that number because so many of these cities have reduced everything. They've gone down to 0 or 50 or even 75, something like that. And we felt that was a pretty big pill to swallow. But we do see in the future that there's more ride share now. There's just fewer people with driver's licenses, fewer cars. So looking to the future, we would like to think that parking lots should be reduced on that merit as well. We'd also like to increase the transparency with the city to encourage shared parking, to encourage alternate means of transportation or alternate means of parking, whether that means shared parking from a block away or ride sharing or whatever that might be. And then also to review our parking requirements every 2 years, just to see, okay, well, 2 years from now, if this isn't working out the way we thought, we can put an end to it, or this is doing better than we thought, or whatever. We don't want to just open-end it. I know that.
Let me ask you a question on recommendation number 1. You're saying 15% reduction in addition to the current 5% deviation. So currently they have a 5% deviation.
Correct.
Are you saying make it a 20% deviation, or just a flat 20% 20% of the parking spots off the requirement?
Just the availability to do 20% across the board.
Well, you didn't answer my question exactly. I'm asking.
Okay.
Let staff make the recommendation to planning and zoning that, hey, this is a situation where we think this particular business should be allowed to drop down 20%. Or do they just start off, do we scratch out all the numbers in our design criteria manual and just replace them with 20% less a number for, like you said,
it's more
a restaurant's 10 per thousand? Do we just 20% says now it's 8 per thousand, just right off the bat? Or because I think I would be amenable if it was a 20% deviation allowed, but not straight across the board. Every business that comes in starts with that 20% less parking, because it might be a situation where Aubrey and Becky look at it and say, nah, we'll be in trouble. If this business is allowed to cut 20% of their spots, we see the handwriting on the wall. You know, they're smart. They obviously designed cities for a long time, and they know what they're doing. So I would trust them to have that allowance, but I'm not sure I would just like it if we just said 20% less parking.
And just change the whole design criteria.
Yeah.
Can I tack on that
Please
question
do.
too?
Jump in.
If we did
Help
do
me.
the 20%, would we still, as Joe mentioned in his question, have groups that can offer more I mean,
We wouldn't restrict anybody from having more.
no. I mean, we do it 20% across the board.
Oh, you're saying
You use less,
allow
but
for
but
even
you
less.
had opportunities to go to another 5% here or go to planning and zoning and all that. Would those be on top of that reduction? So somebody could say, oh, okay, I'll take my 20%. Now I'm going to go petition for more, a bigger
They
reduction. Would
could petition for more with the city's, there's a form that we already have.
So
similar
they
to
would
that.
still have that available?
Yes. So if there was some special exception, they could prove that they don't need that. What's the?
It's a minor
Yes, on a
modification.
per case, exactly. As far as answering your question, we were recommending 20% across the board, which would be, we would leave the criteria manual listed as is, and then take 20% off of whatever that is. So parking is based on occupancy or usage in the occupancy. So a fire department might only need so many spaces, whereas the Kroger needs so many spaces, but it's a different number per 1,000 or per 250 or whatever. So to go in and change everything on the criteria manual to read that specific number would be daunting. But if we just said, okay, we'll go in, we find that number, figure your calculation, now you can take 20% off of that. That's where we were headed with it. And once again, just because we felt uncomfortable taking too much off, at least to start with.
So is there a differentiation between downtown and the rest of the city, like on 528 or 2351 or anything?
We started off talking about that, but we ended up just thinking it might be better just to go citywide.
So, yeah, I like what Mike said about having that opportunity, having that availability. I also liked the point that Robert said about that one strip where I also go
Yes.
to the doctors there, and it's very difficult if you have
Right.
time and there is no other place to park. So I would like that judgment.
Well, we would like to think that
For
as
the
a business
staff.
owner, you wouldn't want to cut yourself short either. That you would want to make sure you have enough parking, and you can see what the original parking matrix would have recommended. So as a doctor, maybe you're looking at it thinking, oh, I only need 5 spots, but I know I'm going to need 10.
If I may, I think that we were trying to allow for flexibility. You can always have more parking.
Right.
Nobody's saying you have to do less. This would just allow, because especially in the downtown area, and you got the little postage stamp size lots, which we've already identified, it makes it nearly impossible to develop those. So Scoop Shop is a great example of tell us what you think you need. Now she's rather unique because if she's an ice cream place and you've got Stevenson Park right here, I think a lot of her business probably will be walk up just because of the type of business she is. But we feel like a business owner is going to be the person who has the felt need. They're not going to want to chase people off because they don't have enough parking, but we'd like to be able to allow them the flexibility to make those decisions. But we also saw towns like Bastrop and what have you who just ditched it all. We was like, ooh, no, we're not ready for that yet. So this was a baby step. This was a chance to kind of put your toe in the water and see how this works. And then we really wanted to hammer home, we want to revisit this again in 2 years, because if it's not working, we need to stop. If it is working, let's evaluate it.
And we did look at like the bigger developments coming in, the 161 and the city center. They're both putting in much more parking than they're required. City center's what, double or more than double what's required. So we're hoping people will be honest with themselves when they're developing their property. But we'd also, especially, this whole thing came about basically because of downtown and the small postage lots. That we're just restricting too much for most of these people. And maybe that's this is just our recommendation. Maybe you guys want to expound on that or send it back to P&Z with different criteria. But this is where we landed. And
Sure. Well, I greatly appreciate the effort that was put in. I mean, I definitely think that everybody's desire and where they were thinking, the goals they were trying to achieve are laudable. I absolutely do. When I look at their current regulations, and we talk about the ice cream shop as an example, well, it's under our current regulations and it's moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
People were able to get what they needed done on the parking requirements. I'm just saying we have so many things that staff works on that I just don't think this is one that's broken that needs fixing. I think we have the latitude with having the city engineer, planning and zoning, and staff having some latitudes each in their court to handle these kind of circumstances. I just don't see that it behooves us to spend time and effort to modify what we have that's already working. Now, I mean, we can point out some of the larger lots, the Captain's Corner, the Gold's Gym, we talked about earlier, not to continue beating that one, but again, they were grocery stores. There were reasons they were that big, and I don't think I haven't heard of any owners ever coming back saying, hey, I'd like to build this, but I need, help me on the parking spots. That just hasn't happened, although I think they could. I really think they have enough parking spots now. They're oversubscribed, but I've since listening to this and listening to the discussion during planning and zoning, I've been driving around a lot looking at parking spaces, just like all of you on the subcommittee or committee probably did as well. But I see a lot of the newer stuff that we've done in the city over the last 5, 7, 8, 10 years. It looks about right. I mean, it's not empty. Now, some of the older stuff does look a little underutilized. I agree, but again, none of those owners have come out and tried to say, hey, you're stopping me from doing something else I want to do new. We haven't done that. So anyway, I'm just saying I think we have enough priorities in the city that this isn't one at this time. And my other concern is if we lower it and then it doesn't work out in that 2-year window or 4-year window that comes out, what do you do then? You're stuck. And I just don't want to see street parking downtown and that kind of thing where we're parking in front of people's homes. Anyway, I'm just concerned. I'm concerned. So, we'd leave it the way it is would be my recommendation. We have the latitude to take care of the downtown problems to get some of the businesses built in those tiny postage stamp slots.
So, Mayor and Council, this is a report item. We were garnering some feedback from y'all as to what direction you would like to go. Just an informal nodding of the head. Would you like Planning and Zoning Commission to take this up to give it some more thought, or are y'all comfortable with the report received? And
Personally, I would like to see P&Z delve into this. I hear you, Joe, but I do think we've run into some roadblocks, especially in the downtown area. And I wish we could create some flexibility. We had folks on the committee who didn't realize the parking wasn't a rule, that it was just a guideline. And they were not comfortable asking for some leniency. So if you don't know what you don't know to ask. And so we felt like that was the reason for that transparency comment. But I think this bears further discussion personally, and I would like to see P&Z maybe spend a little bit of time delving into it a little bit more. What you're seeing an example of right there is something that might be a wave of the future, because you're seeing it in some places like the Walmart over in Pearland, and I forgot what the center's called over here at 45 and 528, but they're starting to build things on the front end of these parking lots that are sitting vacant. And if you drive them down Friendswood Drive pretty much any time of the day, Captain's Corner, the Chase Bank parking lot, I mean, there's a bunch of them, Stone's Throw, they're empty. They're empty. And you don't see a lot of, I mean, Saturday afternoon through 4 o'clock, Captain's Corner is, maybe 25%, maybe 25%. So we've got an awful lot of concrete that is not being utilized. So I would like to see P&Z take a look at this personally.
May I add a little bit to that? Just personally, if you would want to send it back to P&Z maybe with recommendations, P&Z does this all the time. You guys probably do it with staff all the time as well. We see a site plan and we might approve it, but with staff comments or with recommendations. And if you wanted to look at it, if you want P&Z to look at it maybe from a term of just through the downtown district, or just for bigger lots, or just for smaller lots, or I hate to see nothing happen, but that's obviously you guys' choice. But I feel like there is, just being on my professional level, a designer in Friendswood, I've run across things like the Stefano lot, the Masa Sushi lot, even the Scoop Ice Cream. And I do see a need for parking changes, but specifically in downtown would be a good recommendation from, I think, any of us that run those professional circles.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there a couple of projects that are on the burner right now that this 20% waiver would help them out? If they didn't have it, they probably couldn't get in enough parking.
I think there is There is one project, but like I said, I think with
Bless you.
the latitude that we have with the city engineer and the planning and zoning commission, if they bring us a plan, like, I think we can figure it out.
Well, I will say that I like what Councilmember Matranga said. Let's throw it back to P&Z. Hate to give you more work, but you guys take this up, and I would like to give you the recommendation that you look at upping the 5% allowance to 20% allowance, not a straight cut. Each project that comes in, they know going in, hey, they can lobby if they want for 20% less parking, and then it's up to staff, P&Z, to sort of look at it and decide.
And that would allow them to.
That would
skip
allow
some
them.
of the
Now,
hoops that jump
start there is what I'm asking you to look at and see if that flies. And like Sally said, hey, we look at this again in 2 years. Now we know we got 2 years of data. How many people actually asked for the 20% variation and were granted that? Is it happening every project, or should we, maybe just buckle up again and go back to a 5% or whatever? So.
And one of the metrics that's going to be hard to quantify for us is we don't know what we don't know. So for Stefanos, for instance, the old Bayou Gardens building, they haven't come to staff and we're told no. They may have looked at the standards, or you may have represented Marcus and realized, hey, they don't have enough property. But until they come to staff or go to P&Z and we're told no, we have no idea that the site was undevelopable.
Right.
I do contend that building needs to come down regardless. though.
Yeah, right.
I do too.
Well, I'm kind of the same point as Mike, but one thing that interests me is, because it's close to my house, is the former Walgreens, where the Ocean Ramen place is now. That place had an empty parking lot for a long time, but now, you go there in the evening and the Ocean Ramen place is filling up half the parking lot.
Harvest Cafe.
Yeah, and the grocery store and all that. So I think there's an attraction to some of these larger lots or larger parking lots for certain businesses. Coming in and looking at that and then saying, hey, that's going to help me. So.
Well, and so we didn't really discuss this in the meeting, so I'm just going to add my 2 cents. There might be a difference between an office building versus a shopping center or something that could have a restaurant too. So that's maybe something P&Z could look at. We obviously are just citizens volunteering. None of us are scientists. We just, with the limited time we had, we gave it what we gave it. So.
Well, it's much appreciated. It definitely a topic that needed to be discussed, and we're glad that you guys put your heads together and came up with some good points. We allow shared parking, which is, I think, a good thing, which helps in some situations. I love the idea about transparency, and Glenda, maybe you could take that one on. We need to advertise to people about walkability and, walk 2 blocks to wherever you're going and
burn off that ice cream.
Burn off the ice cream, yes. So thank you very much, Marcus. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Marcus.
All right, let's see. Item E, receive and discuss the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report presented by Lupe Garcia with Whitley Penn.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight we'll be presenting the financial statement results and federal single audit results for fiscal year 2023. So first off, I'll just briefly go over the audit process.
Could you introduce yourself? Sorry.
I'm Brooke Fuller. I was the audit manager.
Brooke, thank you. I remember you from the past, but
yes, from when I was out here.
They didn't put your name in my notes, so I apologize.
Yes. But the audit starts back with our planning that begins in August. And then we move into the understanding and identifying key internal controls, and we meet with the different departments here at the city. And then we actually test those internal controls and determine if we can rely upon them. And then we also look at compliance of our major federal program. And then we move into substantive testing, and that just occurred in January. And there we look at more of the financial statement balances that you'll see throughout the report, such as cash, investments, debt, fixed assets. And then based on everything that we performed, we issue the report and then base our opinion. And next, Lupe will go over the results.
Thank you, Brooke. As external auditors, we can express a few different types of opinions. On this slide, we'll present the different types of opinions we could have expressed. The opinion on the far right is the unmodified opinion, and that's the best outcome in a financial statement audit. And so I'm happy to report that as a result of the procedures that we performed, we are expressing an unmodified opinion. So that is found in your annual comprehensive financial report in the financial section right at the very beginning. And the very first paragraph includes that unmodified opinion. When this report becomes public, stakeholders and users of this report will look to that opinion to see what it is. Once they see it's unmodified, they know they can rely on the information in the report being materially correct and that you're following all generally accepted accounting principles, which is set by the Governmental Accounting Standard Board here in the United States. In addition to that report, we also issue a report on your internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance. This is because this is considered a yellow book report or an audit performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Had we identified any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, they would have been reported here, but we did not. And there was no material noncompliance that we noted as a result of our audit procedures. And then the third and final report that we issue is related to your administration of your federal grants. We go through a process to identify which grant or grants we test as major. So for fiscal year 2023, the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, was tested as a major program. That program has a lot of varying compliance requirements that the city has to follow in order to receive and expend that award. Our testing over CDBG did not note any question cost or any noncompliance in any area. So that's a great outcome there as well, because this is step number one for federal and state agencies, is to see how you performed in the federal single audit report. The next few slides, we'll go through some financial statement highlights from the report itself. The statement of net position is your balance sheet. So these are balances as of September 30th, 2023, a snapshot at a point in time. Your total assets and deferred outflows of resources totaled $325.8 million. Of that balance, that's primarily comprised of your cash and investments of $101.3 million, and then all of the city's capital assets, your land, your construction in progress, vehicles, building, equipment, net of depreciation totaled $201.4 million. Your liabilities and your deferred inflows of resources totaled $174.8 million. Of that balance, that's primarily comprised of you have unearned revenue of $10 million. This is related to your American Rescue Plan Act award that you have yet to expend, but you do have that ready to spend in fiscal year 2024. But for reporting purposes, that's reported as a liability until you spend it on an allowable use. You have outstanding bonds payable, the city's debt, and related unamortized premiums of $130.6 million. And then you report a liability related to your participation in the Texas Municipal Retirement System, the TMRS, the pension plan for the employees, and that's $18.9 million. The difference between your assets and your liabilities and your outflows and your inflows is referred to as your net position, or the net worth of the city at the end of the fiscal year, and that was $151 million. Looking at your liabilities a little closer, because there were some significant increases in certain line items, so I wanted to go over those with you. On the far right are your balances from the previous fiscal year 2022, and then the column there in the middle is fiscal year 2023 ending balances. Your general obligation bonds were $88.245 million. You can see there's an increase there because during fiscal year 2023, you sold almost $30 million in bonds, and so that was planned and that occurred, and then that's an increase net of any scheduled payments that were made during the year. Revenue bonds, $34.1 million, a decrease there for payments that were made during fiscal year 2023. You have notes payable of $2.6 million. Those are finance purchases of various equipment and vehicles that have been made by the city. Your OPEB liabilities related to retiree health care. So that amount is measured each year by actuaries, and the city reports that. And you can see that's pretty comparable to the prior year. A slight decrease, $1.6 million there. The net pension liability, you can see there was a pretty significant increase there. It looks pretty stark. However, the plan is still 82% funded in the pension world. That is a well-funded plan. During this year, TMRS Investments recognized some pretty significant losses. This is pretty similar to a personal 401k. You're going to have good years and bad years, but you're looking at the long term. You're writing it out, and TMRS has a great record of over the long term receiving good returns. So
And that will fluctuate.
that's going to fluctuate, absolutely. So there's a schedule in the report that shows kind of the 10-year trend. It just so happens that 2022 was a down year for TMRS, but for 2023, that should bounce right back up. So no concerns there, but that was the amount as of the end of the fiscal year.
And to add to Lupe's comments, that fluctuation was roughly 7% across TMR, or a little under 8% across TMRS's all of their investments. So it wasn't a significant loss, although it does look impactful to us.
And all cities are reporting similar decreases. So this is not unique to Friendswood. Everyone in TMRS is reporting this.
22 was a tough year.
Yes. Bond premiums, $8.2 million related to debt issued by the city. Compensated absences are balances that employees have earned but have not yet used, of $1.4 million. Subscription-based IT arrangements. This is a new line item related to a new standard that the city implemented in fiscal year 2023, related to your software licenses and software subscriptions, agreements that you've entered into. Those now have to be reported in your financial statements. And so this represents the long-term portion on those contracts that the city is entered into as of the end of the fiscal year. Looking at your fund-based financial statements, the general fund, the main operating account of the city, reported an ending fund balance of $16.7 million. That was a decrease of $646,000 in fund balance during the year. The Coronavirus State and Fiscal Recovery Fund, this is the federal award that has the $10 million that has yet to be spent as of the end of the fiscal year. That $10 million earned $369,000 in interest. So that's added into that fund there for that ending fund balance of $367,000. Bond construction, this is where the proceeds from the general obligation bonds that were issued during the year were reported. So that's the reason for that $25.4 million net increase in fund balance there for capital projects, for an ending fund balance of 33.5. And then all your governmental funds that don't meet the definition of a major fund get aggregated and reported in that non-major column. Those combined reported $6.2 million in fund balance for a net increase of $1.7 million. Looking at your general funds performance compared to budget, actual revenues were greater than final budgeted revenues by $2 million. Your expenditures were less than your budgeted expenditures by 5.1. Overall, there was a decrease in fund balance in the general fund of $600,000 for an ending fund balance of $16.7 million. That amount gets broken down into a few different categories. You have non-spendable fund balance related to items that were prepaid, restricted fund balance for items that are restricted for specific purposes. That's the PEG funds there. Assigned fund balance, amounts that were earmarked for expenditure in fiscal year 2024 and that appropriation process, and as well as some items for capital projects. And then everything else gets reported as unassigned fund balance, or $11.1 million. $11.1 million represents 28.6% of your general fund expenditures. The city does have a 90-day reserve policy. As of the end of the fiscal year, that 90-day reserve amounts to $8.7 million. So that's included in that 11.1. So you are meeting your 90-day reserve in the general fund. And then you can see what the unassigned fund balance was in the general fund for each of the last 4 previous fiscal years.
Yeah, I'm actually comfortable with that. Moving down just a little bit, we're still over our 90-day fund and the 8.7 million, and that just is an indication that we're not taking in too much revenue than we actually need to. So I don't have a problem with that going down to 28, 26, something in that neighborhood. So I feel good with that.
Your water and sewer fund is reported in the report. You can see here on the left, we have the revenues and expenses and changes in net position, or your profit and loss. Overall, there was a positive change in net position in the water and sewer fund of $7.2 million for an ending net position of $57.9 million. On the right, I show the breakdown of what that $57.9 million is. You can see the majority of that is tied up in infrastructure. $40 million is related to your capital assets that are used to provide water and sewer services to the city. You have amounts that are restricted for capital projects and debt service of $2.8 million. And then you have unrestricted net position in this fund of $14.9, almost $15 million. And you can see there at the bottom, I have a note that includes your 90-day reserve in the water and sewer fund of $2.5 million.
Yeah, I have a quick question here. On the transfer in, that 1.8 million, Can council anticipate that that city fund, participation fund, will continue to go into the general fund from the water sewer department?
So each year we look at our water sewer operations relative to our general fund. There are positions throughout the organization that operate in both funds. For instance, I'm responsible for managing general fund activities as well as water sewer activities. So we do a calculation to see if we're equitably burdening both funds appropriately based upon.
Right. Well, that amount right there was attributable about 2.5 cents of us moving from 54 cents to 51.5, and then we got the rest down to 50 by using increasing the estimate on alcohol taxes and ad valorem. So I just want to anticipate that we'll continue to see the city's participation fund in that amount.
Yes, you will, but we do have to validate it each year to make sure that we're not overly burdening one fund inappropriately.
I got you.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to end my presentation by covering some required communications. I mentioned earlier that the city did implement a new standard related to subscriptions. The city is following all current accounting pronouncements for its external financial reporting. The report does include estimates. Estimates can change in the future. By far, the largest estimate are the amounts related to your pension and other post-employment benefits. Actuaries remeasure those amounts each and every year. Those can change. There's a lot of factors involved. And there's also allowances for your uncollectible receivables based on historical collections that are made and considered accounting estimates. At the top of this slide, this is not a new risk, but it's new that I have to report it to you. Every financial statement audit, not just of the city, includes risks that management can override internal controls. That means you have policies and procedures for accounting and financial reporting, but we know that management can always decide to do something else. So we perform procedures to address and to identify when something else is occurring that's not following established city policies. And that's just a risk that exists. And external auditors, we have that in our presumed risk, and it's part of our professional skepticism. We trust but verify. Also, although the city is not profit driven per se like a private company would be, there's also the risk that revenue could be recorded in the wrong fiscal period. Improper revenue recognition is a financial statement risk that we perform procedures on as part of the audit. We had no difficulties in performing and completing the audit. We had the city's full cooperation, so we do thank city and city staff and all the departments for their assistance and patience throughout this process. It takes several months to complete. No misstatements that we identified that we had to bring to city's attention. No disagreements about any accounting estimates or any application of accounting principles. We do obtain a letter signed by management of the city. In that letter, they represent to us that they've provided all the information we've requested. Nothing's been withheld that would need to be reported or disclosed in these financial statements. As far as we're aware, the city's not consulting with any other auditors or accountants on any financial reporting or auditing matters. And then the last bullet on this slide, during the year, we may answer questions, provide information and guidance on a variety of accounting or auditing or financial reporting related matters. But at no time do we feel the way we answer, the position we take is a condition to our retention as the city's external auditors. So that completes our presentation. If there are any questions, Brooke and I would be happy to take those.
You know, you hear all the time, and it's actually occurred in Galveston County where municipal governments have been robbed, essentially. You know, there's been a phishing attack and things like that. Do you think our controls would prevent that?
So we do look into that. We question that because that is on the rise, any type of cyber security, and really it happens with electronic payments. You know, someone changes the banking information, someone impersonates a legitimate vendor, and a payment gets rerouted. But the city has internal controls to prevent something from that occurring without it being verified via a reliable source. So that's what makes headlines, is when a large payment gets rerouted. And it's kind of the double-edged sword of being a public entity that is highly transparent. There's bad actors out there that try to use that information against the government, and they know what to do. And they're hoping to find someone in the accounts payable department that's just trying to provide great customer service and make a quick change. And then that ACH or that wire payment goes to the wrong bank account and it's gone.
Good question. And
Do you think our controls are as good as they're going to get against that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it boils down to training. It boils down to making sure the individuals are properly trained, because it just takes someone making an honest mistake that's going to make headlines and cost the city pretty significant dollars.
And to your question, Councilmember Rocky, we do have multiple layers of people looking at the same information for each check runs and to identify any anomalies or any changes to ensure we don't have those situations.
Right. Thank you, Lupe.
Thank you.
Brooke, thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to take a short break.
Thank you.
7:45. We're going to start again. I know, Mirage, you made your quick break there. I know John Roebuck's waiting, ready to go. So, John, we'll get to you in just a minute.
I was going to
Hang in
write the
there.
same thing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Back to work.
Okay.
Uh-oh, no internet.
Just for you.
No, I'm back on.
Okay.
He's like, what the heck?
Okay, item 9.
Get all this fixed.
Work session topics: receive and discuss a schedule of events for the upcoming Special Assessment Revenue Bonds Public Improvement District sale, presented by John Roebuck, BOK Financial Securities Director.
And Mayor, as John is walking up, this is regarding our public improvement district, the Friendswood City Center, the old Wickham property.
Thank you.
Right. Mayor, council members, John Roebuck, BOK Financial Securities. Good evening. It's good to see you guys again. Actually, see here. Is the presentation loaded in here? Yes. So.
I hope so.
No, it's not. I will get it on.
I was gonna say, I have hard copies.
You're really having a tough time tonight, aren't we?
Those PEG dollars are going to come in
If it
so
wasn't
handy.
my review tonight, I would feel better, but.
More than that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, geez.
Thank you.
Schedule.
I can see it on my screen.
I think I got two.
I'm actually seeing it.
Here, Mo, I got two. I got two.
Yeah, we're seeing it.
It is in the backup material.
Got it.
So this is really just a high level look at the scheduled events. Most of the events are going to happen at the next meeting, regular scheduled meeting. But between now and then, we've got a lot of work to do and to get the documents ready for you to approve, and also to levy a date or set a date for you to adopt a lot of these documents. But today we're just going to review the schedule of events in April 1. April 11, we're going to distribute the preliminary service and assessment plan, which is provided by P3 Works with the help of the developer, and also the draft of the TERS 1 final project and financing plan on the same date. We'll have comments due about 5 days later to those, and then we'll send it back out for a second round of comments. And in the meantime, we'll have a preliminary limited offering memorandum. It's basically like a preliminary official statement, but because this is a more risky type bond issue, we're going to have accredited investors only able to buy this bond issue. We're working with the underwriters to draft that with the developer information and city information also. But really, that's going to be driven more by the developer information because it is based on the assessments and the project that's being developed. On the second page of the presentation, we'll have comments again due back on the 24th of the preliminary service assessment plan and the TERS plan. And at that next meeting on May 6th, we'll have you all approve a resolution determining the cost of the authorized improvements for the public improvement district, approve a preliminary assessment and service plan, and approve the setting of the assessment levy, and also set the public hearing for the next meeting on June 3rd for those assessments. And then between those two meetings, we'll finalize the offering document, and we'll also publish the rates in the assessment plan in the paper 10 days before the sale of the bonds and the approval of the assessment plan. And we'll begin marking the bonds, and we'll also do the TERS document to have basically published in the paper, and also sent out to the homeowners within or the owners of the land in the assessment area. And then on June 3rd, we'll come to you and actually approve the sale of the bond, and also hold a public hearing on the proposed levy and assessment, and approve the TERS final project and financing plan. And then about 30 days later, we'll close and deliver the funds to the developer and to the city for the PID. Again, a lot of this detail will become in the next meeting. We'll have the assessment plan, preliminary assessment plan, and also the TERS plan for you to review. But with that, I'll be happy to answer your questions you have in the scheduled events.
And to add to John's comments, a couple of things. The original project financing plan included about $54 million worth of public improvements that are eligible to be funded through the TERS and the PID. This first round issuance will likely be in the $17 to $18 million range, both to meet our 2-to-1 lien to value ratio, as well as to be within the capacity of the developer's construction capabilities in that first round. This, even though the PID bonds are issued up front and are available for the developer, they will be in the city's possession and can be drawn down as he achieves milestones throughout the project. So once the bonds are issued, it's not going into his bank account, it's sitting within the city's controls. In regard to your other comment, what controls we have in place earlier on the audit, we do have plenty of controls in place that it's not going to Tanos until he's demonstrated the improvements have been placed on the ground.
Mo, what are the first priorities? Are we going to try to do this simultaneously, or we've got to build infrastructure to his development, such as the water, sewer, lifts, whatever we have to? I don't understand what our phasing is into his development to make this thing happen.
Sure.
The first 17, how is that going to go?
So they will start immediately. They already have preliminary plats and construction plans into us and the planning and zoning commissions, but they will start immediately on the infrastructure to access the middle part of the property. So the pad sites along FM 528 already have street access and utility access, so he would be able to start construction on those sooner.
Will they have turn-ins?
He will get turn-ins, so there will be driveway approaches, even if they're temporary, until they get the final alignments worked out with
So then they
TxDOT.
could actually start building.
Correct.
Okay.
And then we're going to work with Mr. Tanos on the phasing of the mixed office buildings and the hotel conference center and that immediately behind those retail pad sites to allow some joint construction and vertical construction, provided they have access for fire and safety apparatus. And in fact, it works out better for us. We're not going to pour pavement while we still have heavy truck traffic going on those roadways, so that we don't damage brand new roadways.
Yeah, just temporary concrete rock and all that.
The last phase of the project will be the first phase includes the detention and the drainage. The last phase of the project will be the apartments as well as the fire station number 3.
Now, who's responsible for the detention and the drainage? We are.
The developer's building it. We are funding it through the PID bond issuance as well as through our drainage bond that we authorized along Clear Creek.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank you.
I just had a sequencing question. So we're coming up in April 11th, April 4th, 16th. You've got the preliminary service and assessment plan; those going out for comments and then final comments. Where's that going? Who's providing those kind of comments? Where's that?
The working group, so the lawyers, we are the city, making sure that it matches all the specs for the project and also the financing plan that we're putting together.
So that's all internal?
It's internal, yes, sir.
Okay. And does that ever, all that come back to council? When does that come back?
Yes, it comes back to you on the
Is that May 6th?
May 6th meeting, yes, sir.
Okay, correct. Okay.
Much like getting out a home loan, we're going to go through a litany of different questions and assessments and evaluations about the organization's financial health.
Okay. At what point does council see any of that beforehand, or it just shows up to us kind of its semi-final form?
You will see it in the semifinal forms at the May 6th and the June council meetings.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll see you next month.
See you next month. Yes, sir.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, zone classification change and amendment to the future land use map for 2600 South Friendswood Drive. It is 7:53 p.m. and I now call to order this public hearing regarding the request for a zone classification change for property located at 2600 South Friendswood Drive, being approximately 4.8476 acres of land out of lots 64 and 65 of Sloan subdivision out of the John Dickinson League, according to the map or plat recorded in volume 254A, page 6, and transferred to plat record 3, map 61A, both of the map records of Galveston County, Texas, to change from single-family residential SFR to community shopping center CSC, and an amendment to the future land use map to change the property from low-density residential to retail. This public hearing is being held for the purpose of giving all interested persons the right to express their views regarding the proposed zone classification change and an amendment to the future land use map. Everyone desiring to be a part of this hearing should have completed the public hearing comment card in the foyer and submitted it to the city secretary. Each participant shall give his or her name and address in order to provide a proper record of this hearing. Rules allow each person 5 minutes to present information. However, I encourage everyone to be as brief and to the point as possible. I would now like to request that staff summarize the subject of this public hearing. Aubrey.
Good evening. So this subject property fronts FM 518, which is also known as South Friendswood Drive. The property to the west is zoned CSC already and is planned for a mixed-use town center. that was part of the West Ranch PUD back from 2004. And the east is zoned single-family residential and is separated by a 50-foot drainage easement. The property backs up to a detention pond that is part of the West Ranch development and is zoned planned unit development. The future land use map identifies this property as developing with low density residential at this time. This was one of the properties when we were revising the 2021 map that we didn't know really which way it was going to go, so we just left it residential, but it's immediately adjacent to another property that's going to be developed as commercial. So changing that designation on the future land use map makes sense. The Planning and Zoning Commission held their public hearing and made their recommendation on March 14th. It was a positive recommendation with 5-0. We had 2 commissioners absent, and we did have one neighbor express concerns over potential light pollution. They were citing the Ranch Express lights, but we have zoning regulations in place that should limit the light pollution to residential property.
Thank you, Aubrey. There being no one desiring to speak on this item, I now close this public hearing regarding the zone classification change and the amendment to the future land use map. Next item, consider an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Friendswood to change the zoning classification of the property located at 2600 South Friendswood Drive, 4.8476 acres of land out of Lot 64 and 65 of Sloan subdivision out of the John Dickinson League, according to the map or plat recorded in volume 254A, page 6, and transferred to plat record 3, map number 61A, both of the map records of Galveston County, Texas, to change from single-family residential to community shopping center, and amendment to the future land use map to change the property from low-density residential to retail.
Second.
A motion and a second. Anyone have any further questions, discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Item 11, City Manager's Report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item we have on my report is recognition of our fantastic folks in administrative services. So for the 21st consecutive year, the Governor's Finance Officers Association has recognized our finance team for outstanding work related to their this is the budget presentation, not the audit. And I'm sorry, the audit just came in the previous month, so I get those confused from time to time. But it is a stellar record that our city has maintained for a number of years. On the audit side, it's 30-something years and counting. So we appreciate everything that Katina and her team do day in and day out to ensure that we have quality budgets as well as financial reporting on the audit side. The next item I'd like to update council on, you heard it earlier from Patty Steinke, our Spring Sparkle event is coming up here April 13th, so in a little under 2 weeks. This is a fantastic event. We encourage folks in the community to clean out their garages and their houses. No hazardous waste, but all other materials welcome. It will be held in Centennial Park on the 13th from 8 to 2. These are usually very popular events, so come early because there will be a line of vehicles. We will verify your residency to make sure you are Friendswood residents. Our special election's coming up in May. We don't have a city council election, but we do have a special election for the reauthorization of our street sales and use tax. This is the tax that was instituted back in 2016. It's for maintenance and replacement of streets that are existing at the time the election is held. Voting locations will open up here later this month, both on the Harris County side of the city and Galveston County side of the city on election day. We encourage folks to educate themselves on this matter and come vote once, not vote once and often, but just vote once. But it is a vital need in the community. Want to recognize National Library Week, which will be next week. Fine folks at our Friendswood Public Library are stellar and they get their own awards. This is another opportunity to recognize the work that they do. If you haven't been by our library lately, please come by. Karen and her staff will greet you warmly and we can get you, help you out any which way we can. Finally, you also heard this mentioned earlier. Our Keep Friendswood Beautiful received another Gold Star recognition. This is for the 11th consecutive year, another trendsetter. I don't have the statistic this year. Last year it was in the top 20%, I want to say, received this recognition, and the numbers are right about the same. So great job by our wonderful volunteers in KFB. They continue to do amazing work. And that's it for my report, unless y'all have any questions.
Thank you, Murad. Item 12, business items. A, consider ratifying and concurring with the city manager's appointment of Steve Ravreka to the position of Director of Public Works.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and a second.
Before y'all take a vote, could I say a few words?
Please do.
First off, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Renee Ibarra, who's in the audience this evening. He was with our organization for 17 years and did an outstanding job. It is sad to see him go, and he will leave some big shoes to fill. Thankfully, like some other positions that have vacated in the recent past, he's done a good job training his successor. Steve comes to us, has been with us for nearly 12 years in Public Works. The last number of years as the deputy director, and prior to that, he was with other organizations in Public Works for nearly 20 years. So we're thrilled to have Steve. Sorry to see you go, Renee, but thrilled to have Steve be able to step up and take that role.
Welcome.
Yeah.
We need more, yeah. It's either Steve or Brian in this organization. There's quite a few of those too.
Yeah, Renee, your old position's about to be filled, but if you want to come back, we'll probably find you a spot somewhere.
I already tried, Mayor.
Talk to Haley. All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor? You're here. Congratulations, Steve. What do you have, a presentation? You got a slideshow or something?
He wastes
All right.
no time.
Item B, consider authorizing the First Amendment to the amended and restated cost-sharing agreement for the Southeast Transmission Line Project, City of Houston 42-inch water line replacement. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. What do you want to say?
You have any questions?
That's good.
Short and
Very
sweet.
good.
I don't think we have any questions. This looks pretty straightforward. But thank you for stepping up there.
Yep. Good first one.
Yeah. Right. You waited all night just for that? All right, all in favor?
Welcome to the long hours.
Yeah, right. Only been here since 7:30 this morning, so he's on board.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Consider authorizing a professional services agreement with JER HR Group LLC for a citywide compensation study.
Motion.
Second.
Approved.
Motion and a second. Any questions about this?
Again, Mayor and Council, Renee was the last of a few, and I say a few, a number of quality employees that have left our ranks for other opportunities, but we're realizing that our compensation is not as competitive as it should be. And so we're asking y'all's consent to work with JER to do a comprehensive citywide analysis of both public sector, other city governments, as well as translatable industries that have hired our staff within the last 18 months.
Mayor, I have one question.
Go ahead. Councilmember Matranga.
When was the last time a similar study has been done?
20 years.
So 2008 was the last official study, and we do benchmark ourselves with other cities each year, but as you know, some roles in this organization aren't the exact same as those same roles in other organizations. It's woefully overdue, and it's time that we do a
One for police officers more recently.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good
Yes, sir.
It's going to cover all city employees.
So it will cover 130 job classifications, which entails all city employees, because it does not. But if y'all want to include mine, we can look at it.
I would like to have the city manager included.
Okay.
Mo, you said it includes the police officers?
It does,
Okay.
yes.
I don't know if we want to see what other city managers are being paid out there.
Yes, we do.
We're
That's
about
the
to-
whole point of it.
We're about-
Yeah, I think it's quite a bit more than what we're looking
Yeah,
at here.
we're going to discuss him in a couple of minutes here,
Yeah,
so
we
we're
will.
about to. All right, I got a motion and a second. All in favor? 7-0. Item D, consider approving a nomination for 4th of July Parade Grand Marshal. I'll make this motion. I move that we appoint or select former Friendswood High School Band Director Greg Dick as our
I'll second it.
Grand Marshal. Yeah,
Very
I
good.
will second it.
all in favor. Easy one. Item 13, proposed resolutions and ordinances. Consider a resolution setting a public hearing. Were you just hanging around for that, Paula? No, you're waiting for your ride home. Wait.
Waiting for dinner.
Going as fast as I can. Consider a resolution setting a public hearing on the creation of a tax increment reinvestment zone and its benefits to the city and to the property in the proposed zone being approximately 326 acres of land generally located along FM 528 West Parkwood Avenue at the intersection of Friendswood Parkway, extending northwest to the city limit of Friendswood and southwest of Baker Road, and also includes 3 of the 4 corner tracks at the intersection of FM 528 West Parkwood and Friendswood Parkway, wholly located within Galveston County in the city of Friendswood, Texas, and directing a preliminary reinvestment zone project and financing plan be prepared. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
So what y'all are doing this evening is simply calling the public hearing for the second tax increment reinvestment zone. It's inclusive of a number of properties. One, the old Boone property off of FM 528, which started this discussion, as well as the Wilderness Trails property at 30 Wilderness Trails, just on the other side of Chigger Creek. There are some additional properties that approach the city. The need for this reinvestment zone is to fund the infrastructure that we wouldn't otherwise be able to develop. The extension of Friendswood Parkway. There are no water and sewer utilities on that side of Wilderness Trails, actually on that side of FM 528 suitable enough to serve those areas. So the city is using this as a mechanism to encourage growth in a manner that we would like to see. We've had in years past some other uses that weren't as warmly received in that area. So if we are working with the developers in this financing system that's only limited to these properties and not adding any additional taxes to even those property owners, we're able to control the outcome of the project a lot better.
And this is just to schedule the public hearing.
Correct.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, let's see. Item B, consider an ordinance amending the city's general budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 by approving Budget Amendment 5 and providing for supplemental appropriations and/or transfers of certain funds.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
And I just want one little discussion on one item, if that's okay. Mo, could you give us a little color on number 6, Friendswood Civic Center and Library expansion?
Yes, sir. So last month, the City Council approved a contract with PGAL for the conceptual design of and programming of the Civic Center, the old senior activity building. We had lumped in with that the potential of a partnership with the library project. This is simply allocating funds from our fund balance to pay for that contract that council approved. Our hopes is this is a partnership project, not only with our departments, but also with Galveston County for a polling location and potentially some other offices, a tax office, et cetera, as well as the state of Texas on potentially doing something here.
Should Parks and Rec go there too?
Parks and Rec would go there as well, yes.
And senior citizens.
As senior citizens, we can, thankfully, since it's in downtown, we can go high. We can go, and if we do have a situation where the library is in totality moved across the street on the other side of 518, we can then sell the property in which the library sits to help pay some of our cost associated with the project.
Thank you, Mo.
That's exciting.
That was it.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, don't jump the gun here. I got to read something. Item 14, consent agenda. I now need a motion to approve consent agenda items 14A through 14C and 14E through 14L. We'll consider item 14D separately after the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Okay, moving on to item 14D. Next is to consider item 14D, which is to consider an ordinance repealing Chapter 86 Utilities, Article 2, Water Division 1 generally of the Friendswood City Code, and amending Chapter 86 Utilities, Article 2, Water of the Friendswood City Code by adding a new division to be numbered and entitled Division 1 Generally to conform to the updated Drought Contingency and Water Emergency Plan and to promote the responsible use of water throughout the city. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Because it was an ordinance, I had to read it specifically, lest I get in trouble with our city attorney, so.
Okay.
Item 15, it is now 8:09. We will now recess into the into and conduct an executive session pursuant to Section 551074 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the annual performance of the city manager. Let's see here. I now reconvene the open meeting of the Friendswood City Council and announce that in accordance with Section 551, I'm doing it, Glenda, I'm doing it right now. In accordance with Section 551.102 of the Texas Government Code, no action was taken in executive session. We now move on to item 16A, discussion and possible action. Consider taking appropriate action regarding the city manager's annual performance evaluation.
I make the motion that we give the city manager 1.5% raise.
Second.
All in favor? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Hit the gavel. Gavel.